happy Wednesday. Hope you guys are having a good week. Before we get started today, I just wanted to make a couple quick announcements. First of all, we're going to be having another extra session tomorrow at 4:30. So if you're interested in learning about some extra topics, definitely head on over to that. All the details about it are up on the course website in the extra sections portion, so you can take a look there and read what it's all about. Other than that, I just wanted to mention I'm not ignoring your emails and message board posts about the video. I am really trying to fix it. I converted the video to an MP4, which the internet told me should work. Some of you now are telling me it still is not working. I'm not quite sure why that is. I'm going to look into it some more this afternoon in order to, since, the homework is due today. If you're still having trouble viewing it, I highly suggest that you use a campus computer to view it. An MP4 should be viewable just in the browser. So try a computer on campus. I've heard that it's mostly people with Macs that are having trouble, so I suggest trying a Windows or Linux computer on campus if you can. And I'm going to try and fix it. I just can't promise you I'll have it figured out because video formats seem to be really weird and not follow rules all the time. So sorry about that. We're working on it. Do you guys have any questions about the homework before we get started? Yes.
Are you expecting us to be updating the JavaScript, the CSS or changing styles of the JavaScript for the showing and hiding?
Okay, for showing and hiding, are we expecting you to update in JavaScript or in CSS? I think with showing and hiding, you could do it either way. I think it does create a rather unwieldy amount of classes if you are doing it all in your CSS. So I think that's something that's probably okay to do in your JavaScript if you'd like to. But either way is acceptable. Any other questions? All right. Well, then I want to pick up where we left off last time. So last time we were learning how to do web services, right? And we wrote a web service that generated XML. So basically, we were generating this kind of thing, right? And at the very end, I said, well, we can also do this for JSON. And it's actually nicer when you do it for JSON. And so I very briefly told you about that, but we didn't get a chance to actually do it. So I want to actually do that now, practice with some JSON. So this is the JSON I want to generate. I want to generate having three separate things in our JSON, so name, gender, and rankings. So that's not too complex looking. We talked about, right, how just like everywhere else, we don't output by just printing things. Never a good plan. Instead, what we do is we use arrays. Basically, we use arrays, we put things in arrays, and then we call JSON encode that converts our array to a JSON string. So that may sound a little weird. What that looks like is something like this. So note here, we have some variable, we're creating an array. Every single kind of field in our JSON is going to just be like a string name in quotes on the left and a little arrow pointing toward its value. And so this is basically the syntax for an associative array. So associative array, right, you've been using arrays, and in JavaScript and PHP, right, you can set your array at like index 0 to be some value, but you can also set your array at index library to be something. So when we're writing it out like this, we're just saying, basically, I want to create my array at index library, it's going to be OrderGuard. At index category, it's going to say fantasy. At index books, it's going to be this array. And then once you've, created all of that, you have to use your header, of course, and set it to JSON. And then you just print out the result of JSON encode of that array. And what you get from that one is something like this. Any questions so far? All right, well, let's try this. So I've got our file that we wrote last time. I made one little change to this. What I did is I moved all of our XML creation code into a method here. So here's our XML creation code, and then I'm just calling this method from our loop here. So what I'd like to do instead of call create XML now is I want to make another function called create JSON, and we'll call that. So I just made it into a function so we could interchange them and you could see both of them, basically. So create JSON, and then I'll create another function here for that. Create JSON, and then we're probably going to want the same parameters, I think. Tokens, name, and gender. All right. So if I want to create some JSON, well, let's look back at the JSON I want to create, right? So here's my JSON I want to create. So first of all, I should probably create an array for all of this, an array to put all of this in. So this is, this is my data that I want to print out, and it's going to be an array. And then in my array here, I want to have some stuff, right? So I want to have the string name, like colon, whatever the name is. So let's see. I can just write name here, and then the little arrow, right? Because that's how you do it when you're actually creating the array. And that's going to be my $name, and then comma, because that's our first array element. And then I think gender was next. So gender here, and then gender, and then finally, if we look here, we have rankings. So rankings, I mean, setting the left side of this isn't too hard, right? I just say rankings. But now my rankings are an array. This thing here, this is an array of data. So, okay, we need to get an array of our numbers. Where are our numbers in this? Like, where are they stored? Do you guys remember? Tokens, right. So what tokens contains this string split on white space. So the first thing is Morgan, the second thing is M, the third thing is the first number. So basically what we want, like we already have an array there, but basically what we want is that array starting at index 2, right? So what we can do is there's a handy method called array splice. And this is our rankings. We can set our rankings equal to array splice, and then it takes the actual array first, which is tokens, and then it takes an offset, and this is like where you want to start in the array. So this is going to give you your array from that starting point on. So we want to start at 2. And then we can just say our rankings is equal to $ranking. All right, and then let's see. We've created our array. We put a semicolon at the end because this is just, this is actually creating an object. Yes. What? Rankings. Oh, with an S. Thank you. All right, rankings with an S. Good. Yes.
When do we use an arrow with an equal sign, and when do we use an arrow with a dash?
Oh, great question. So we've been using, in the last little bit, we've been using this sort of arrow with just a dash. So what this is if you have an object and you're dereferencing an object, you use this arrow with the single dash. So if you're calling the XML DOMs create element method, you would use this because you're taking an object and you're using its method. This one with the equals arrow, this is I'm creating an array and I'm saying I want this like name string to be in my array, and that's the index for this dollar name. So it's basically array versus object. All right. So here we are. We've created some JSON. Now, if we want to actually see anything, right, we have to say header, and we have to set the content type, and then it's application/JSON. And then to actually see it, we're going to call JSON encode, and we're going to call that on our big array, our data array. And this itself is not going to work. I mean, it is going to work. It's going to do something. But just like when we save our XML, JSON encode just creates a string. So if we don't print it, we're not going to see it. So we should call print on this. All right. So if I upload this, we should see something different happening. All right. So refresh. And now, one unfortunate thing here is it's not printing out all beautifully, but hey, we're still getting our JSON. If you want to see your JSON with like nice formatting, there's all sorts of JSON formatters. If you just Google like, free JSON formatter, there's all sorts of things where you can just stick the string in and it will put in nice indentation for you. I don't know why the browser doesn't do it for you. I mean, it does it for XML and all that, but for some reason it doesn't. So here you can see we've got all of our values that we wanted: our name, our gender, our rankings. Any questions about this? Generating JSON. You're going to need to do this next week, so it's going to be important. All right. Well, so that is how you generate JSON. And this is exactly kind of what the web service is doing that you're using. I would show you, I did think about writing the weather web service with you guys, but the weather web service is a little more complex because it's talking to another web service that generates data, and there's all sorts of funny things I had to put in there to make the data valid and nice, because that web service, you guys have experienced some of it. That web service is constantly updating, and it tries to do a lot of things to help you. Like if you type in some gibberish, it'll go, okay, what's the closest city name to that? And sometimes you look at it and you're like, what? How is that city name close? It's trying to be helpful. So yeah, that's why we didn't do that. Alrighty, so that's JSON. Now what I want to spend the rest of the class doing today is actually talking about a completely different topic. I want to talk about forms. And so we have done kind of most of forms so far. So far in class, we've written a lot of code that that looks like this. It uses form controls. It has inputs, labels, field sets, legends, text boxes, all sorts of stuff. And so, we've done a lot of that. However, we haven't actually used forms. We've been using Ajax, right? We have all these inputs on our page, and then with Ajax in JavaScript, we get the data out of our page, package it up, send it over somewhere, and then get a response back. A form is a little bit different. So, if I forgot to delete something else here. If I upload this page and open it in the browser. So let's see, this is turnin.php. This is kind of a class turn-in page. We used to, when you turned in your homework, it used to basically go through a page that was a lot like this. Now we use your UW NetID and log you in and all that. So it's not quite so much stuff here. But this is kind of what we used to do. So this is kind of the kind of page that we've been writing a lot. We have, drop downs, checkboxes, and radio buttons and inputs. When you want to make a form, an actual web form, you have to put a form tag around all of that. So you surround this with a form tag, and this form tag has an action attribute. And this action attribute, this is where you're going to send the information. So with Ajax, we were doing this all in our JavaScript. This is a way that you can send information to another page, send parameters to another page using just PHP. Now, you might say, well, wait, we already know how to send stuff. Why are we learning this? Is this better? Is this worse? Well, Ajax is actually better. Ajax, we talked about how it's asynchronous, right? So it's asynchronous, meaning you can send a bunch of requests at the same time and then not have to wait for one to come back to send the next. A form is synchronous, so it's a bit slower. We're going to spend much less time on forms than we did on Ajax. I considered almost taking it out of the course, but forms are so common on the web, I think it would be really hard for you guys to go out and program with other people if you didn't know forms. So we're going to kind of do a quick coverage of them, but just keep in the back of your mind, Ajax, it's the way to go if you have a choice. But you should know this too. So if I want to make our page into a form, what I'm going to do, I'll just add that form tag around everything. So let's see. I'm going to add the form tag around all the field sets. So form, and then the action. And what I want to do right now is I want to send this to, I have a page that's just going to accept parameters and print them out that I wrote, just so that we can see what parameters we get. So that's https://Webster CS Washington edu /params.php. All right, so we opened our form, and then I'll close our form down here. All right, so there's one other thing that I think we kind of need in here, and that is, if we look at our page, we have no button, right? To kind of like tell the form to go submit. So in the past, when we were writing stuff with Ajax, we had this button tag, and we put an on-click on that button, right? We do something a bit different in a form. So in a form, what you're going to do is you've got two new types of inputs. One is a submit type, and the other is a reset type. So they're really easy to write. You just say input type submit or input type reset, and submit will send all the stuff that you've put into your form into whatever page the action is set to, and reset will just clear out the form. So we should probably add one of these at the bottom here. So let's say here, input. For some reason, Sublime is really confused about input and doesn't think it's self-closing. Type equals submit. All right. So let me upload this, and we can try it out. So there we go, turnin.php. We'll refresh. Now we've got the submit query button. You can change the text on this by setting the value to something different. But let's just type in some information. I'm just going to, type in random stuff and hit submit. Now, this is the page that params.php that I set the action to. Basically what this page does is it just looks at all your parameters and outputs them here so that you can see them. So I'm outputting my $_get array here. We've used that array before, right? We've taken parameters out of that array when we're doing our PHP web service. In Ajax, we've sent parameters in that, right? So it's our same get array, nothing different. By default, your form is going to send as get. Now, one weird thing here you may notice is that it says assignment arrow 1 and nothing else. If I go back and look at my page, there's a lot of other data I probably want to send over here, right? Like my name and my section and whether or not I promised I didn't cheat. All that stuff I should probably send. But I'm not. So if we look at the code, there's one big difference between the radio buttons and everything else. The radio buttons have a name assigned to them. Now, why did we assign a name to the radio buttons? Like we've talked about that before. Why was that important? Yeah, so that they're linked together. So if you click one, you can't click the other two. If you click one, then you click another one. The first one unchecks. Because the whole point of a radio button, right, is you can only select one. So we use the name for that. And I said later we'd talk about, what the other use of name was. Here's the time. Names are incredibly important for forms because you only send things as a parameter if they have a name. So the reason for that is that the name that you set is the name of the parameter that gets sent. So if for my name box, if I want it set, I can say its name is equal to name. So then I'll get a parameter called name that stores that value. If I want to send my section, let's say my name is equal to section. And then maybe for my cheating checkbox, I can say my name is equal to cheat. All right. So let's re-upload this and take another look at it. Okay, so here we are. I'll refresh. I'm just going to type some stuff in. Section AB, assignment 2. I promise I didn't cheat. I send that over. Now I have a lot more stuff in my get array, right? So here's the name I typed in, the section, the assignment, and whether I cheated or didn't cheat. For the cheating for checkbox, it's either on or off. So on means you've checked it. All right. So there we go. You can see the URL up here. This is the URL that was sent. Now I want to actually get this page working, and this page is a turn-in page, right? So there's a couple other things we could have on it. If there was any other information we wanted to send, we could send it with hidden inputs. So what this is basically is if you say type is hidden, this is a way to secretly send a parameter. So, on our actual turn-in form, I think we do a little bit of this now because we don't ask you for things, so we secretly send them in the background after we get them from logging into your UW-Net ID. I don't think we really need to do this here. They won't appear on the page. It's just a way to send extra parameters. However, if I want to make this turn-in page actually be able to turn something in, right? What would I want to, should I use get? Is get the right thing to use? Post. Yeah, because get is when I want to get information from the server, but if I want to turn in a file, I want to actually send that file to the server. The whole point is not to get data off the server, it's to give data to the server. It is true that I probably want to get a little data from the server back saying turn in successful or something like that, but that's just basically a confirmation that the stuff I sent to the server worked, right? So it's basically a confirmation of a successful post. So the way we can do post with forms is you say method post, and that changes it. So we can, take a look at that here in our form tag method post. And if I upload this, it should change what we're seeing on our params page. So let's see, we'll go back here, refresh. All right, my browser is trying to be helpful for me right now by leaving these filled, right? You guys probably saw this in SpeedReader when you had all those inputs, right? If I want to get rid of these, I can do Control-Shift-R for a hard refresh, or if you're on a Mac, Command-Shift-R. I think leaving that there is fine for the moment, though. Okay, so now here I am. I'm in here. Notice it's a post now. It says post. And, of course, I have no parameters after in my URL because in post doesn't send them in the URL. And here, all of this stuff is now in my post array. All right. So, there we go. We've put all this stuff in our post array. So one thing to note when you're using forms and you're doing a post, note I'm going to an HTTPS address. This will not work if you go, at least on Webster, if you go to an HTTP address. So make sure it's HTTPS. Otherwise, you're going to see nothing coming through and you're going to be very confused for a while. All right, so that is post. So now, our page here, if I go back, I mean, our page is not the most professional looking page, right? But I think we're kind of doing okay. There's one major thing wrong though. If I want to be able to submit my code, I have nowhere to submit my code at the moment. So when I have code here, let's just for the moment to start with, so we can get some stuff working here. I want to just create a text area, I think, text area, and then if I want to send the data in this text area over, I should give it a name. So I'll call it code. All right. So now, if I re-upload, I should be able to put some code in there. So let's refresh. I've got this text box. I've got all this code for the page, right? So let me just, I don't want to try and dig through, find another file. So I'm just going to paste our code for our page in here. So it's in there. I don't want to scroll through, but I promise it's there. Now, if I submit this, let's see what it looks like. What? What's happening? That looks a little weird. Let's try submitting this to, let's try making a page, like a page of our own to submit this to, not params.php. So instead of this, I've got this turn in submit page, which is basically the page I want us to submit to instead of params.php to get this to really work. So I'm going to change this address to turnin-submit.php. And then in turn and submit, let's try outputting that stuff that was sent over. So, I'll create a PHP block. And then the thing that we want to output, right, is the value of that thing in our post array, the thing at code in our post array, because that's where the data is that's being sent, right? We named it code. So I probably actually don't want to be in a real PHP block, right? If I just want to print this, I probably want to be in an expression block, and I can say that I want our $_post at code, and then close my PHP. All right, so let's see if that was just some weird thing on that params page. So there we go. Upload, turn in, submit. If I can drag and drop, okay. So we'll go back refresh, and now we should be going to our turn and submit, not our params page. So let's hit submit query, and I appear to be on the same page. This is even worse, isn't it? However, if you look at this address, I'm now on turnin-submit.php. So it did actually send to my turn and submit. But why does it look the same? Does anybody have any idea why it looks the same? Yes. Use the same code? But I didn't use the same code, right? Like I used this code. So why does it look the same? Yeah. Yeah, it's interpreting the code as code, right? It's not, it doesn't know that basically I just want to send you a confirmation message that here's the text you submitted. It's actually rendering it. So turns out if we want it to not render it, there's a relatively simple method call we can use to do that. It's called HTML special pairs. And what you do is you just put this around any text that you don't want the browser to render. And this will escape everything for you, so it just renders as text, not as HTML. So if we try that here, HTML special pairs, let's see, then this should stop it from actually rendering. So I'll re-upload that, and then if I, let's see. Oh, it wants me to resend the form here because I'm on the turn and submit page, not the turn in page. Okay. I'll refresh our turn in page, submit again. Now, I mean, this looks terribly ugly, right? But hey, this is HTML. This is not actually rendered. So if we wanted this to look a little nicer, what might we want to do? Pre-tag. Pre-tag would help, right? We could put a pre-tag here. Anything else? What? Yeah, so we would probably want to indent over to the left because the pre-tag will indent exactly where you put the code. Anything else we might want to do? I think we probably also want a code tag. That will, because this is conceptually code, right? And then this will make it print out in monospace, which is nice. And it's just better style to put a code tag anytime you have code. So this should fix the appearance a little bit. All right, so refresh. There we go. It looks a lot better. All right, so we're now successfully able to kind of send some code over and output it. But this is not how the actual turn-in page works, right? We're missing a really critical step in turning stuff in here. We're not actually saving a file. It would be pretty crappy if every time you submitted your homework, the system said, oh, congratulations, you submitted successfully, but it didn't save your file. Because then we could never grade it. And so we should probably, I think there's two things we should do here to this. Well, in the real turn-in form, first of all, we do not use a text area. We actually let you upload a file. So that's number one. And number two is that we should actually save your file on the server. So if we're going to do those things, we're going to need to learn a little bit more stuff. For uploading the file, there is an input of type file. And this will allow you to have the little browse button you're used to when you upload files, and give you some nice little boxes here. So we can, instead of a text area here, we can change this to an input, type equals file, and then we need to give it a name. So let's call it code still. So its output should appear in the same place. So I'm going to save this and upload our turn-in page again. And then, let's see, I'll go back to turn-in, refresh. Now we've got this nice browse button. So we can browse and select a file. Let's see. Let me go to, our quarter lectures, and we're today 19. And I think I was turning in turn-in before, so I'll turn in turn-in still. All right, so let's try submitting. That isn't right. So the reason for this is that when you send a file, it doesn't go in the post array. When you send a file, it goes in the files array. There's a separate file array. So when you, actually, it's on this slide too. When you do this, you have to set the EncType to multi-part form data. This basically means I am sending stuff in my post because I set my method to post, but I'm also sending a file. There's two parts to this, and you have to tell it that. So let's come up here and do that. So EncType multi-part slash form. Let's see, did it have, form data. All right, and so this means the file data is coming, and then in our post array, before we had that file name, but if we want to get the file contents, in our turn and submit, instead of at post, we're going to need to access our files array. All right, so if we re-upload these, we should see something a little better. So that's turnin.php and turninsubmit.php. And let's see, here we go, refresh. It's still selected our turnin PHP, so I think that's okay. Then we'll submit, and we get an angry warning. So we're almost there. We're almost there, I promise, but not quite. So it says, warning, HTML special cares expects parameter 1 to be string array given. All right, so basically what's happening is files at code is an array. So the reason for that is that when you send a file, it needs to actually send more data about the file than just the file contents. So files can be really big, and so since they can be really big, right, that's why we want to use a post, not a get, because if we used a get, we'd have to put our entire file in the web address, and our file might be too long for that. There's actually a limit to how long your web address can be. But it's also could be kind of a whole lot to store in memory. So what ends up happening is you get this files array, and this files array has a bunch of different pieces of information about that file. So it has the name, so this is like the name that you think of when you think of the file, the name of the file you uploaded, so turnin.php in our case. It has the type in case you want to know what type it was, the size, and very importantly, it has the temp name. So what temp name is when you upload the file, well, when you upload it, it gets put temporarily in kind of a temporary holding area until you do whatever you want to do with it. And the temp name is where it is, like its current name, that you can access it from. So if you want to do something with it, like print it out, and instead of just saying files at code, so you'd say files at code because code is the name that we gave the file upload, but then you say after this at temp name. So that's going to be the name of the file, and then if we wanted to get stuff out of this file, well, we could do something like call file get contents on it. So we get file.get contents of this temp name. Now, before we try this, I actually want to show you how to save the file, because it's kind of important to actually save this. And there's a very standard pattern that we use with this. So, whenever here's just the syntax for how to access each of those things in case you forget. Whenever you upload a file and you want to do something with it, you should first check if this is uploaded file. I mean, that sounds funny. You just uploaded a file. You're checking if it is an uploaded file. But what this does is it makes sure that the file was uploaded correctly and that it actually got there. Because if you have a network connection problem or something, part of your file could be there and not the other half or something. And that would be kind of messy and not so good. So you check is uploaded file. And the thing that you pass into it is the temp name, because that's where that file is at the moment. And then if you want to save that file once you've checked that it's there, you can call move uploaded file. And what this does is this takes the original, the current location of it with this temp name, and you give it another location of a name of a file that you wanted to store in permanently, and it will move it there. And this is advantageous because you don't want to leave it at the temp name location, because this is kind of a temporary area where stuff gets cleaned out periodically. So you don't know it'll totally stay there. So you want to once you get it over to the server, move it to somewhere permanent. So we want to do basically exactly this. So if I come back to our code here, so I could put that all in this pre right here. Generally, if I have a bunch of PHP stuff to do, it's best to do it at the very top, very, very top, before the doc type. So I'm going to create a PHP block up here, and then I am going to say if is uploaded file of, and then here's where I need to get it out of my files array. So files at code at temp name. All right, so if that is an uploaded file, then I'm going to move uploaded file from this location to, and let's just store this in whatever the person's name is. So in your post array, you should have also been passed a name, right? So I could say $_post at name. So that's, so I want to store it like that, let's see, .html, I guess, or .txt or something, whatever it is that I want to, file type I want it to be. Yes? Oh, I got my parentheses wrong. Oh, there we go. Oh, thank you. All right. Better? Okay. Thank you, in-class compilers. It's helpful. All right. So there we go. We're saving at whatever name we submit, .txt. This is not quite what we do on the server. We have a much more complex file structure. We do stuff like we have a folder for your section, and then a folder for you, and then each homework in that. But basically this is the same idea. So we're going to do that, and then we might want to, on the slide here, it gives us a couple messages here depending on whether we were able to save it correctly. So it's generally good to do that so that the user gets some feedback. So, we could say here something like, well, we probably wouldn't want to actually print it here, right? What would happen if I printed here? It would print before any of my HTML. That would not be very good. So there's a couple ways I could do this. Either I could move this code down into my into my regular page here, or I could do something like, I could have some variable like success, and I set it to false, and if it's uploaded correctly, I set success to true. And then down here, I could say like, if not success, oh, well, I should probably do that in a PHP block. No wonder it's not highlighting right. Okay, so if not success, then, print out some error message. So let's see, I could write, file not uploaded successfully, and then otherwise I could just output my file. So here I could do file get to contents of that temp name. The other thing I could do here is now I've got it saved at this location. So, if I wanted it to look maybe a little nicer, I could read it from that file that I just saved it into. Yes?
Your file not uploaded successfully be printed as the word code because it's in your code?
Yeah, so the file not uploaded successfully, that will be printed as code. So that's a good point. It might be better if we, moved this. We can move this up here, and we could say create a paragraph that would only have content, assuming we didn't upload correctly. Yeah. All right. Let's try this. So, turn in submit. I can't remember if I made any changes to my turn-in, so I'm just going to upload that too, just in case. Doesn't hurt. All right. Now, if I refresh, let's create some, let's use some name that we can find relatively easily, like Sarah here, section AB2, turning in turn-in.php. We'll submit. Of course, there's an error. So, error on line 4. There's a syntax error. Oh, I think I need to maybe escape my dot here. Oh, no, that's not the issue. So, in here, my post, I've got quotes, right? So, here I was putting quotations around the whole thing. You can do that in PHP, but you'd have to escape those if they were in the print. So instead, I'm just going to concatenate using the dot. So we'll try this again. All right. And I'll refresh. Okay. And now, okay, file get, okay. So it's having a problem now because I copied that same thing down here stupidly. Alrighty. So let me just fix that. Another reason not to copy and paste. All right, refresh, and there we go. So there we go. And if we look at FileZilla here, I have a billion files, but if I scroll down here, we will find a file called Sarah.txt, which is the name I used to submit. So this is how you can send files, how you use post, and the basics of using forms. So you're going to get more practice with this later this week and next week. I still probably recommend Ajax if you have a choice, but you're likely to come across these at some point, so they're really good to know. And file uploading is always useful. Alrighty, we're just about out of time, so I will see you on Friday. Have a good rest of your day, and remember, there's an extra session tomorrow. CSE switched servers, and then for a while they didn't have PHP on the new course because it's not Webster for the website side. They didn't have PHP on it, so I posted everything as .php, and yeah, so I'll go back and fix it, but sometime this afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So like if you get one back successfully, the other will get back successfully. So you shouldn't assume that if you get one successfully, another will be successful. You can assume, like if you don't get one back successfully, you can just hide everything and say you failed. But if you don't get, but if one successful, that doesn't necessarily mean the next will be successful. No, you can't assume that, like, if one comes back